Alright guys, and welcome back to Yoast Built. So, what you see behind us is the EG Civic Coupe. So if this is your first time watching a Yoast Built video, or seeing this car on one of our videos, this is my low dollar B18b1 swapped EJ2, which is basically a EG Coupe DX model, or a roll-up window car. It doesn't have any power windows or anything like that, so it's a lightweight model. I got this car from a local guy for a pretty cheap price. It did run. It did not drive very well, but it did drive. The coilovers were set way too low. It didn't have a traction bar. It didn't have all the suspension. If you go back and look up the playlist for the EJ2, you'll see a bunch of the videos I did installing parts on this car. But now it is time to do the thing I've been waiting to do for a long time. While working on all the cars recently, I, in the background, have been working on the motor that is going to be going to this car very soon. But first, we need to get the old LS out of it. Before we do that, I want to do a compression test, because when we dynoed this thing, it only made like 113 horsepower, which is the same thing that the DA made when the original B20 was in it, that ran really horribly and smoked. Well, this motor runs okay, but smokes. So I'm just going to do a quick compression test, and then I'm going to show you, well, I'll show you right now. So what we are going to be putting in our coupe over here is a 2000 Acura Integra GSR swap. This came out of a crash car. I bought it locally. These motors are not cheap anymore. So got it, cleaned it up, took the transmission off. I put a full competition stage 4 clutch and pressure plate in it. It has a OEM style flywheel on it. I also pulled the head off, made sure pistons and everything look good, because I did see a video of it running, but I always want to verify. And I also wanted to have the head checked, make sure there's no leaky valve seals or anything like that, because the last thing I want to do is put a motor in a car and then it be smoking and running horribly. So the head's been completely gone through. It does have a set of ARP head studs and a Cometic head gasket, because down the road we will be boosting this GSR in the car. It also has a Skunk 2 Pro intake manifold with a 70mm throttle body. And I have 2 headers for it. I actually have tons of parts for this. I have a mount kit for it. But first, we need to get this thing compression tested. I just want to make sure this motor is good, because I will be doing a build series on building an LS VTEC to make 600 or 700 horsepower in the future. So as long as this motor's clean and healthy on the inside, we know this head smokes, but the head is going to go away anyways, so that doesn't matter. So I will quickly do a compression test and then come back to you guys with the results. Alright guys, so when I run a compression test, I have all the wiring harness pulled off. I just get a spare battery, ground it to the transmission, power wire to the starter, and then I use a screwdriver to jump it in between this. I also like to hold the throttle body open. This is a cold compression test. I always spray a little WD-40 in the cylinders, just so the threads, when you're sliding this in, are good. This motor, as you can see right there, it's right around the 190 PSI mark. Yeah, like 190, 195. So these 3 cylinders have all the same. This cylinder only has 165. So that's where the motor is hurt at. So I'm assuming this is, somewhere in the head or something like that on that cylinder is damaged. But it has compression on all 4 cylinders. So the block should be good to start our LS VTEC build in the future. So now let me throw you guys on a time lapse. Let me get this motor out of the car, and then we can talk about what we're going to do to the engine bay and outside of the car to clean up the look of this thing. Alright guys, so after that time lapse, you guys saw me struggling with the rear T-bracket. For some reason it was stuck and it just didn't want to let go. I thought this thing had stock motor mounts in it. Turns out we have an Innovate transmission mount, we have a Hasport rear mount, and then we have a stock driver side mount, which is pretty interesting. You can see the power steering lines are just cut. Heater hose lines, I'm disconnected those were actually hooked up on the motor. But the valve right there, see the cord, it was never hooked up to it, so it never worked on the inside. You see they just painted the brake distribution valve or proportioning valve. They just painted it when they painted the engine bay. I'm going to remove all the wiring, remove the throttle cable, remove all this wiring. I'm going to take the whole front end off of it, the bumper, the fenders, the headlights, because this is all new stuff, or new to this car. So I'll be pulling fuse box. I'll pull all of that stuff off the firewall. I'll probably leave the brake booster, but pull the master off. You see this line right here? This was a brake line that actually exploded when I had first got this thing, when I was driving it down the road. So that's just a stainless steel brake line that I stuck in there just so it had brakes. So I'll have to get an OEM one of those. I might just buy a Wildwood proportioning valve and relocate it down behind the intake manifold so it gives it a cleaner look. I'm still 100% undecided what all I'm going to move and what all I'm going to get rid of. But let's get to cleaning. So I'm going to pull everything off, and then I'll come back to the video once I have everything out of the way that I necessarily think should be removed or painted or cleaned or fixed. Because somebody literally just, I don't know if they sprayed blue over it or if they just try to spray clear over the blue or the green. It doesn't really make any rhyme or reason, but then they like cut right here, which I'm going to weld up and everything. I'm not going to try to weld up all the holes and make it a completely shaved bay. I just want to make it like just somewhat cleaner. Fuel filter, I'll probably shorten that, run it down there, put a real like a Earl's filter on this thing, just to clean up the look a little bit. So let me get to pulling the harness and everything, fuse box, all the stuff that isn't hooked to anything anyways. That K member needs cleaned about 7 times, heater hoses and everything like that, and then I'll get back to you guys. Alright guys, so I have both wheel well wirings pulled apart. What I'm going to do is just do a semi-tuck, run it inside the frame rail, run it out up here under the headlight so you don't see any of this wiring. You'll just see the back part. The fuse box will be in the factory location. I need to order a clutch stainless steel line because you can see this one is actually too short and running across here. It's not supposed to be like that. The brake line, I'm going to have to find one of those. See, all the power steering lines are cut. Surprisingly for a Civic, this thing only has one cut plug. I'll just look it up online, see what this plug goes to. It's probably some check valve for the AC or something like that. On this side of the car, there's nothing cut, which is amazing. Yeah, there's really nothing else. I need to do some welding. For some reason, they cut this right here, which I'll weld that back up. When I sand this all down and prep it, I'll be, like I said, removing the brake line stuff, fuel line stuff, pulling it down, pressure washing everything. It's 26 degrees outside right now, so that will not be happening until the middle of the day, which sadly won't be part of this video. But this is where we're going to leave off with the engine bay for tonight, until I can get some pressure washing done, and then figure out what those 2 wires are, and order a couple more parts that I was unexpected needed. Then we'll get back to the engine bay part of this. Now, over here on the floor, I have laid out all the parts that we have received already, and I'll basically go over everything with you. So, Gates timing belt. When you have the motor part, replace your timing belt. Pretty common sense thing. Then we have a Yokonaka full 3-inch mandrel bent stainless steel with a muffler. Then we have a set of stage 2 axles. They're rated for, I think, 350, 400 horsepower. Then we have our Honda S300, boost by gear, pretty much everything except for coil and plug. We have our eBay motor mounts. I didn't know that we had the Hasport rear and the Innovate side, so I might use those and paint them up to make them look like this, and then just use the 2-bolt one on this because the LS was a 3-bolt, so the GSR had a 2-bolt, or I might just swap it over and use the 3-bolt. Don't really know yet. Then we have our turbo manifold, our turbo downpipe, and then our turbo back housing. The actual turbo that's going to go on this car is right now on the Spirit RT. The Spirit RT has a 2.5 stroker motor in it, T3 dual cam, and that will be coming out, and it's getting a bigger turbo because we're going to go for over 600 horsepower. That car ran into some electrical issues, so we're going to pull it all back apart, fix a couple things that we don't like about it, and then get back to working on that. But we got our wastegate, we got our turbo manifold, we got our back housing, downpipe, exhaust, axles, ECU. So we were just going over what all else we need. Stainless steel clutch line, must have. Makes the clutch feel a lot better, especially when you upgrade the clutch and you have a much stronger pressure plate. The last thing you want to do is have the clutch line explode or anything because it can't handle the extra force of the pressure plate. I'm going to pull the fenders, do the minor wire tuck, get felt tape, make it look all nice, wrap everything up, get to sanding. This will be another truck bed liner engine bay. I'll definitely make the video of that because that's a very lengthy process, and I will paint underneath the hood. So everything will match under the engine bay when you open the hood. Do have a front mount for the car and a intercooler piping kit. I'll get to that when we need to get to that. And I also do plan on painting the car, and I need to swap over the door panels from the donor car. We will have heat on this car, working heat. I'll have to take apart the valve. If not, I'll go get the valve off the other donor car. So other than that, the motor's here. The motor's timed and everything. I'll just swap the timing belt. We need injectors and map sensor. That's the 2 major things we need to order. So now that I have everything here apart and everything, I know what else. Oh, fuel pump. We're going to put either a 450 or a Hellcat pump, the 525. Like I said, this car, the goal is 350, 400 horsepower, just like that car. These little light 2,200, 2,300 pound cars, you don't need massive amounts of powers. If you follow any of the, Honda builds, 400 horsepower, 450 horsepower in one of these cars would go well in tens. So, if you want a 10-second death trap, that's fine. But we have other cars we're going to build strictly for drag racing to go fast. These are just fun, econo boxes. But that is a lot of talking. Hope you guys are still following along with the video at this point. Motor's out, trans is out, engine bay is cleaned up as much as I can right now without, disconnecting anything where the brakes and everything still work. Because I still have other things to work on in the shop. So I want to be able to move the car in and out and have brakes and everything just in case we don't run it into something and cause more body damage. If you guys had followed along with the series on this car before, I did replace everything in the rear. The front suspension is all pretty much new. I did get the energy suspension bushings for the rear control arms to stiffen that up a little bit. Like I said, I plan on this being a fun car. I do want to paint it. If you guys didn't know, I went to paint and body school. So painting is not something I do every day, but I do know how to do it. It's not something that I'm scared to do. So we want this thing to be representable as like a good street car, no show car. No need to make a show car and then just set it in the garage. It's kind of pointless. Build cars to drive them. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, if you haven't subbed to Yoast Built or seen the videos on any of the other cars, just go back to the channel, check out all the videos. Hope you guys are having a good day, and hope you guys had a good new year. Until the next one, you guys are the greatest.